El Salvador is changing, a country where you couldn't open a business, safely walk down the street, or find a reasonable job a couple of years ago, is suddenly turning into an economic and developmental hub of Central America. From the 19th to 21st century, the people of El Salvador constantly saw coups, extreme political instability, revolts, and a whole string of leaders that pushed El Salvador further and further into the world of crime and chaos. However, today, the country is becoming famous once again, not for its problems this time, but for a bold and controversial transformation, which is being led by one man, Nayib Bukele. So who is Nayib? Is he truly the Robin Hood that his countrymen are portraying him to be, or a power-hungry dictator? What has he done that's gaining the world's attention? And what does El Salvador look like under Nayib? Nayib, a man of crisis? Nayib Bukele, who has in the last half a decade appeared as a man of crisis for El Salvador, was born in 1981. After establishing himself as a successful businessman, Nayib entered politics in 2011, when he joined the FMLN and was elected as mayor. Nayib soon emerged as a political outsider who was promising a radical change to the youth of El Salvador. With similar promises, Nayib entered the presidential elections in 2019, and with 53% votes, he became the 81st president of the country. Now, with Nayib's tenure, El Salvador saw a complete overhaul of policies. On one hand, his presidency has been praised for the changes it has brought, but on the other hand, he's being criticized too for his methods, way of governance, and an unconventional way of dealing with issues. But the question here is whether El Salvador has truly improved under Nayib, and if so, then how? El Salvador before Nayib Bukele. To answer this question in a better way, it's important to look at El Salvador before Nayib's time. Before Nayib Bukele took office, El Salvador was widely known for its extremely high crime rates and gang violence. The country had one of the highest homicide rates in the world, with 52 murders per 100,000 inhabitants in 2018. These high numbers were mainly because of the activities of notorious gangs like MS-13 and Barrio 18, which operated in almost the whole country. These gangs were involved in all types of crimes, including extortion, trafficking, killings, kidnappings, and violence. All of this had a direct impact on the country's economic growth and the livelihood of the people of El Salvador, thus further pushing the country into the world of poverty and fear. In addition to the worsening security crisis, El Salvador also faced systemic corruption and a deadly cycle of political stagnation which had made any positive changes almost impossible. There were only two dominant parties in the country, the right-wing Arena and the left-wing FMLN, and both of them had alternated the power for decades without paying much thought to national development. Because of this, the public trust in institutions had come to an all-time low, and infrastructure, education, and healthcare systems weren't in any shape to support the already suffering population of the country. El Salvador was also facing high brain drain, with emigration rates being so high that at one point El Salvador became one of the top nations with the most number of people moving to the United States each year. Obviously, with the high crime rate, low trust in the government, and increasing immigration, the country's economy was another point of concern. Most of the economy depended on remittances from abroad, and there was almost no major industrial sector. Because of this, unemployment and underemployment became another major problem that Nayib faced when he came into office. El Salvador under Bukele, a new era. Nayib Bukele's rise to power marked an important point in the country's history. After decades, he was the first president who didn't belong to the two major parties of El Salvador. After coming into power, Nayib introduced new policies in almost every aspect of governance. But from the very first day of his rule, it became clear that his first priority was making El Salvador free of any type of gang violence. For this, in 2022, Bukele declared a state of exception with the suspension of certain constitutional rights, which facilitated mass arrests of suspected gang members, This move led to the incarceration of over 70,000 individuals, dramatically reducing the country's homicide rate. And by early 2025, this number exceeded 85,000. As a result, the number of homicides in the country decreased from 52 per 100,000 in 2018 to 36 in 2019. By 2022, this number came down to 7.8 per 100,000, and in 2024 to 1.9 per 100,000, which, by the way, is one of the lowest in the Americas. The second aspect that Nayib targeted was corruption. Acting fast, his administration quickly replaced key government officials that were suspected of corruption at a higher level and launched investigations into past administrations. In 2023, Bukele proposed reducing the number of municipalities from 262 to 44 and legislative seats from 84 to 60 to ensure efficiency, cost saving, and reduced corruption at various levels. Being a leader in his 40s, Nayib presented himself as a modernizer and someone who believes in technology, so he soon introduced digital governance initiatives and embraced technology as a major stepping stone towards national progress. One of the most headline-grabbing policies was the adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender in 2021. Nayib installed Bitcoin ATMs, announced plans to build a geothermal-powered Bitcoin city. To further increase the hype, Nayib introduced a policy where any foreigner could get citizenship of El Salvador by investing 3 Bitcoins in the country's economy. According to Bukele and his administration, this move was made to attract foreign investment, increase financial inclusion, and reduce reliance on the US dollar. While this adaptation had some issues and educational hurdles, it gave El Salvador a head start in the global cryptocurrency space. But Nayib's economic policies aren't only centered around Bitcoin. Aside from cryptocurrencies, Bukele's economic agenda includes attracting international investment and promoting an almost dead culture of local entrepreneurship. Savior or dictator? According to the critics, some of Nayib's policies, including the ones he implemented to control the crime in the country, are against civil liberties. Similarly, some of his critics believe that Nayib's government doesn't follow due process when implementing any new law or practice in the country. Former American President Joe Biden's administration was also among these critics, which commented that we have deep concerns about El Salvador's democracy. Similarly, reports of arbitrary arrests, overcrowded prisons, and a lack of legal representation have raised alarms among human rights organizations. In addition to Nayib's handling of the crime problem, his economic policies have also earned some critical comments. Many experts criticized his Bitcoin approach, saying that it won't work in a country like El Salvador, where the majority of Salvadorans lack bank accounts or internet access, let alone digital wallets. However, despite all the criticism, Nayib is becoming popular among his people day by day. According to a survey, 84% of people have approved and shown satisfaction towards Nayib's way of governance, and it looks like he is here to stay. So, what does the future of El Salvador look like? The future under Nayib Bukele. In 2024, Bukele began his second term after a re-election, where he won with a landslide victory. While some critics and opponents believe that this win was unconstitutional, Nayib's supporters see this as an opportunity with a continued decline in crime, stronger economic growth, and greater international relevance. Bukele's future plans include expanding the infrastructure of the country with more and more development in the technology sector. Nayib also wants to transform El Salvador into a hub for innovation and tourism in Central America. However, there are significant risks towards Nayib's regime too. With Nayib's popularity, the number of opponents that he has to face are increasing too. Similarly, international organizations and foreign governments have expressed unease about the direction of Salvadoran governance. Currently, some of Nayib's policies, like the Bitcoin experiment, are also showing unfavorable results, which has further increased the bureaucratic distrust towards his government. Lastly, the policy of ending crime by putting more and more people behind bars seems to be working for now. But experts believe that in the long run, such policies will end up hurting the government and people of El Salvador with much longer-lasting effects. There's no denying that Nayib Bukele's presidency has transformed El Salvador. Within half a decade, El Salvador has changed from being one of the most dangerous countries in the world to a nation that's showing some growth, development, and hope. While some of Bukele's policies have delivered immediate results, some are yet to show any positive results and have only been a source of criticism for him. By the end of his second tenure, things related to the future of El Salvador and its dynamic leader will become much clearer. But one thing is for sure, that Nayib Bukele has become one of the most well-known and celebrated leaders of the 21st century. I'll meet you soon with the next video.